Hello, everyone. Welcome back. This is a story from Her Silent Revenge, and it has taken a turn you absolutely didn't expect. Let's begin.
They thought I was crazy. My sister said so. My mother cried and confirmed it. The doctor signed the diagnosis. Today in this courtroom, they are all here to prove one thing: I am not competent to manage the $3.2 million that is about to become mine. But there is one thing no one in this room knows. On the judge's desk, there is a crimson file with the seal federal sealed. For the past 7 years, I have waited for this moment, and what is about to happen will change everything. Thank you for your time here with me. If this introduction sparks your curiosity, please leave a comment letting me know where you started. I'd love to connect with you. Before we begin, a little note: this story is built on dramatic events interwoven with fictional elements for entertainment and to share profound life lessons. Any coincidences in names or locations are purely coincidental, but what about the values and messages of truth? Perhaps you'll find them somewhere in the life around you. Now let's begin Jordan's journey. It's 9 o'clock on a cold Wednesday morning in March, and I'm sitting in courtroom 7B of the Suffolk County Probate and Family Court in Boston. The fluorescent lights hum overhead, casting a sterile glow across wood-paneled walls and rows of empty benches. Across from me, my sister Natalie straightens her navy blazer and smiles at the judge. She looks calm, confident, like a woman who's already won. I sit alone at the respondent's table. No lawyer, no folders stacked with legal precedents. Just me, a yellow legal pad, and a pen I haven't touched. Natalie has Mr. Montgomery, a sharp-suited attorney in his late 40s, with slicked-back hair and aggressive confidence. Behind them, my mother Barbara sits in the first row, hands clasped, eyes red-rimmed. She's dressed in muted gray, the picture of a worried mother. The gallery isn't crowded, but there are enough people to make this feel public. Reporters sit near the back pens ready. Court staff shuffle papers. In the third row, I spot Aunt Susan, my father's sister, her face carefully neutral. Near the exit sits a man I recognize but wouldn't acknowledge: Agent Foster, my FBI handler, dressed in plain clothes and blending in. Judge Edward Chambers sits elevated on the bench, silver hair combed back, expression unreadable. He's 61, seasoned, carrying the weight of someone who's seen too many families destroy themselves in this room. He glances at papers, then at me, then at Natalie. His gavel comes down once. This court is now in session. Case number 2025-CV-4472. In the matter of the conservatorship petition for Jordan Ann Keller. Ms. Natalie Keller, petitioner. Ms. Jordan Keller, respondent. Are both parties present? Yes, Your Honor, Montgomery says, standing briefly. Yes, Your Honor, I say quietly but firmly. Judge Chambers nods. Let the record reflect that this is a conservatorship hearing, not a criminal proceeding. The petitioner seeks to establish legal guardianship over the respondent on grounds of mental incapacity. Mr. Montgomery, you may proceed with your opening statement. Montgomery rises, smoothing his tie. He walks to the center of the room with theatrical ease, clears his throat, and addresses the room. Your Honor, this case is about compassion. It's about family, and it's about protecting someone who can no longer protect herself. He pauses. Jordan Keller is 29 years old. She has no stable employment, no verifiable income. For years, she has lived in isolation, consumed by paranoid delusions that have grown more severe with time. I feel every eye on me. I don't flinch. I don't react. I sit with hands folded and let him talk. According to Dr. Anthony Reed, a board-certified psychiatrist with 25 years of experience, Ms. Jordan Keller suffers from paranoid delusions of grandiosity. She believes she is employed by the Federal Bureau of Investigation, a claim that is demonstrably false. She believes her family is involved in criminal activity and conspiring against her. She has no insight into her condition. She refuses treatment, and Your Honor, she poses a risk to herself. Montgomery clicks a remote. A screen flickers to life. Grainy security footage, black and white, time-stamped Saturday, March 1st, 10:47 a.m. It shows me at a bank counter, voice rising, hands gesturing sharply. A teller steps back. A security guard approaches. The footage cuts. This video was taken at Commonwealth Bank and Trust 4 days ago. Ms. Keller's account had been frozen pursuant to a temporary restraining order, an emergency measure to protect her assets. When she learned of this, she became agitated, verbally aggressive, and had to be escorted out by security. He pauses, letting the image linger. Then he turns to Natalie, who sits with downcast eyes, the picture of a grieving sister. Ms. Natalie Keller is CEO of Keller Properties, a respected real estate firm. She loves her sister. She has tried for years to help her, but Jordan refuses help. She refuses to acknowledge her illness. And now, with a life insurance payout, $3.2 million set to be released in 45 days, when Jordan turns 30, there is real risk these funds will be squandered or lost. Montgomery's voice softens. Your Honor, Ms. Natalie Keller asks this court for one thing: authority to protect her sister, to ensure she receives the psychiatric care she needs, to manage her finances until she recovers. This is not about control. This is about love. This is about family. He sits. The room is silent. Natalie dabs her eyes with a tissue. Barbara lets out a small sob. Reporters scribble. Montgomery is good. He's spinning a story that sounds reasonable, heartbreaking, even to anyone who doesn't know the truth. But I do, and so does the man on that bench. I shift my gaze to Judge Chambers. He's listening, taking notes, face professionally neutral. But there's something else. On the corner of his desk sits a crimson folder. Thick, sealed, stamped in bold black sealed. Federal file, U.S. Attorney's Office. That folder hasn't been opened, but I know what's inside. My FBI credentials, the investigation into Natalie's money laundering, evidence linking her to Connor Flynn and the Winter Hill mob. The reason this hearing is not what it appears. Natalie doesn't know what's in that folder. Neither does Montgomery. But I do, and when Judge Chambers opens it, this performance will collapse. I glance at Susan in the third row. Her face is neutral, but I catch the slightest flicker of acknowledgement. Agent Foster near the exit doesn't move. He's waiting. We're all waiting. Judge Chambers clears his throat. Thank you, Mr. Montgomery. He looks at me. Ms. Keller, you are representing yourself. Do you wish to make an opening statement? Not at this time, Your Honor. Surprise ripples through the gallery. Natalie's eyes narrow slightly, confusion crossing her face. Montgomery leans over and whispers. She nods, but I see uncertainty there. Good. Let her wonder. Judge Chambers taps his pen against a folder, not the crimson one, a different one, then looks back at Montgomery. Before we proceed with witness testimony, I need to address something. The room goes still. He picks up the crimson folder, holds it for a moment, and looks directly at Natalie. Ms. Keller, are you aware that there is a federal file related to this case? Natalie's composure slips. I know, Your Honor. I'm not aware of any federal involvement. Montgomery stands quickly. Your Honor, with respect, I'm not aware of federal involvement either. This is a conservatorship matter, not a criminal case. Judge Chambers nods slowly. I understand. However, I have received this sealed file from the U.S. Attorney's Office. I am not at liberty to disclose its contents at this time, but I want both parties aware it exists and may become relevant as this hearing proceeds. Natalie's hand tightens around the tissue. Barbara stiffens. Montgomery's confidence wavers. Judge Chambers sets the folder down deliberately in the center of his desk. We will proceed with witness testimony as planned. Mr. Montgomery, you may call your first witness. Montgomery hesitates, glances at Natalie, then straightens. Thank you, Your Honor. I sit back, letting the moment wash over me. Natalie thinks she's won the first round. She thinks the video the psychiatrists report, the tearful mother, she thinks it's all falling into place. But she doesn't know. The real game hasn't even started. And it all began 6 days ago at my mother's 60th birthday party. 6 days earlier, on a Friday evening in late February, I walked into the harbor room at Rose Wharf and knew instantly it was going to be a disaster. The restaurant hovered above Boston Harbor, floor-to-ceiling windows, revealing black water and scattered city lights. It was exclusive, the kind of place where reservations were booked months ahead, servers moved like dancers, and champagne arrived in crystal flutes worth more than my rent. My mother's 60th birthday. 30 guests, a private dining room, white roses, silver candle holders, linen so crisp it felt staged. I arrived 15 minutes late on purpose. Late enough to avoid small talk, late enough to slip in unnoticed. I wore a simple black dress, plain, affordable, intentional. The second I stepped inside, I knew it was wrong. Natalie stopped me before I'd taken 3 steps. She wore a red Gucci gown that screamed money, her hair twisted perfectly diamonds, flashing as she moved. She belonged here. I didn't. "You're late," she said quietly, sharply. "And what are you wearing?" "This is a formal event, Jordan. It's a dress. It's a black sack." She glanced around, then leaned closer. "Mom's friends are here. They'll ask about your job again. What should I tell them?" "Tell them the truth. I'm a freelance data consultant." Natalie laughed softly, cruelly. "And how much did you make last year?" 10,015. While I'm running a $50 million company, I didn't answer. I walked past her. The table stretched across the room, gleaming under the chandelier. My mother sat at the head, flushed with champagne, glowing in a silk dress that matched her smile. "Jordan, darling." "Sit next to me." Natalie was faster. She slipped beside our mother, hand on her shoulder. "Mom, Jordan's fine where she is. The Hendersons need those seats." I checked the place card, the far end, near the kitchen door, surrounded by empty chairs, people who hadn't shown or hadn't mattered enough. Exiled at my own mother's birthday. I sat. No one approached. The guests were my mother's wealthy friends and Natalie's business associates, tailored suits, loud voices, market forecasts, distant relatives. No Aunt Susan. Natalie had made sure of that. Dinner arrived. Lobster bisque, filet mignon, vegetables arranged like art. I ate quietly while conversation flowed around me untouched, invisible, which was fine. Invisibility was part of my job. At 8 o'clock, Natalie stood and tapped her glass. "I'd like to propose a toast," she said smoothly, "to the most incredible mother anyone could ask for. You built this family. You supported us through everything." Applause. My mother dabbed her eyes. "I'm proud to carry on that legacy," Natalie continued. "Keller Properties is thriving, growing, building, creating opportunity. All because of you, Mom." More applause. Then she looked at me. And of course, my little sister, Jordan. A pause. Just long enough. She's finding her way, still figuring things out. But we love her, don't we? Polite laughter, side glances. Heat crept up my neck. My mother added Jordan's always been sensitive, not like Natalie. Natalie's a fighter. A woman in pearls leaned toward me. "What do you do, dear?" "I'm a data consultant." "Oh, who do you work for?" "I'm freelance." "Ah." Her smile tightened. Natalie cut in effortlessly. "Jordan's taking her time. No rush. She doesn't have a family to support." I set my fork down. "Excuse me. Restroom." I stood, lifted my purse, and walked out. Before leaving the table, I'd done one thing: opened the recording app on my phone and encrypted FB. I issued tool disguised as a weather widget and pressed record. Then I left the phone inside my purse, hanging from my chair. I stayed in the restroom 10 minutes, long enough for guests to move outside to the balcony, cigars, harbor views, champagne refills. When I returned, the dining room was mostly empty, but voices carried from the windows. I stopped just outside the doorway. Natalie's voice, low, urgent. "Mom, we have a problem. Harbor Towers is short $22 million. Auditors are asking questions." My mother slurred slightly. "What? How? It doesn't matter. I need access to the trust. Dad's life insurance, $3.2 million. When does Jordan get it? She turns 30 in 45 days. That money is hers." Natalie laughed bitterly. "If the project collapses, we lose everything. The house, the company, your lifestyle. You owe $350,000 in credit cards. Where do you think that gets paid from silence?" "Jordan doesn't need that money," Natalie continued. "She's barely functional, no job, no life. If something happened, if she were declared unable to manage her affairs, you or I could be her guardian." My mother hesitated. "Natalie, That sounds like survival. Every word burned into me. The phone in my purse kept recording, every confession, every plan. I waited, then walked in. They lowered their voices. I retrieved my purse and headed for the door. Natalie glanced up. "Leaving already, I have work tomorrow." She smiled. "Work, right." Outside, the February air cut through my dress. I reached the parking garage, slid into my rental car paid for under an alias, and sat in silence. I stopped the recording, played it back. Crystal clear. 22 million in debt. A plan to seize my trust fund. A plan to declare me incompetent. I encrypted the file and uploaded it to a secure FBI server. Then I sat there staring at the dashboard, finally letting myself feel it. The humiliation, the isolation, the cold realization that my own sister was planning to erase me. I knew Natalie was desperate. I didn't know she'd already decided to destroy me. And by the next morning, everything would change. Saturday morning, 7 o'clock. I wake to the sound of someone pounding on my door like they're trying to break it down. For a moment, I just lie there staring at the ceiling, my heart hammering. The pounding comes again, 3 sharp, deliberate knocks that echo through the narrow townhouse. I throw off the blanket, grab a sweatshirt, and pull it over my pajamas. My feet are bare on the cold wood floor as I walk downstairs. Through the front window, I see a man on my stoop. Mid-40s, receding hairline, cheap suit, clipboard. He looks tired, impatient. He knocks again. I open the door just enough. "Yes, Jordan Keller. Yes. You've been served." He shoves a thick manila envelope into my hands, turns, and walks back down the steps without another word. I watch him climb into a dented sedan and drive away. I close the door, lock it, lean against it for a second, feeling the weight of the envelope. Then I walk into the kitchen, set it on the small wooden table, and sit down. The morning light is gray and cold through the window. The house is silent, just me and whatever's inside this envelope. I tear it open. 2 documents slide out. Official letterhead, legal stamps, my name typed at the top of both. The first is a temporary restraining order. I skim the text, my pulse quickening. Petitioner Natalie Keller requests, and the court grants respondent Jordan Keller is prohibited from accessing bank accounts, financial assets, or real property. Respondent is prohibited from contacting petitioner or Barbara Keller. Violation will result in immediate arrest. Signed yesterday, Friday, 6 p.m., hours before I left the birthday party. My bank accounts were frozen at 6 o'clock this morning. I set the TRO aside and pick up the second document. Section 12, petition, application for emergency evaluation. Petitioner Anthony Reed, MD, subject, Jordan Ann Keller, age 29. Patient Jordan Keller presents with severe paranoid delusions of grandiosity. She believes she is employed by the Federal Bureau of Investigation. She believes her family is involved in criminal activity. She has no verifiable employment history. She exhibits severe paranoia, including belief she is being followed. In my professional opinion, she poses a risk of serious harm to herself and requires immediate psychiatric evaluation and involuntary commitment for 72 hours at Brookline Psychiatric Institute. Filed Friday morning, 8 a.m. before the party, before the toast. Before I recorded Natalie conspiring with my mother, Natalie had this ready. She'd been planning it for weeks. I set the documents down and press my palms flat against the table. My breath is shallow. I force myself to slow it, to think. This isn't panic. This is strategy. I stand and walk to the cabinet above the refrigerator. I pull out a small lockbox, unlock it, and take inventory. Cash on hand, $340. 20s and 10s rubber banded together. Bank account frozen. I can't access a single dollar. FBI emergency account, $2,400 stored in a credit union under an alias. It's my backup untraceable to Jordan Keller. But if I use it, if I swipe that card anywhere, it leaves a digital trail. If Natalie's lawyers subpoena financial records, they'll find it. They'll ask where the money came from. My cover collapses. I can't use it. Not yet. I close the lockbox and move to the drawer under the microwave. Inside are 2 burner phones. FBI issued prepaid registered to fake names. I power one on, full battery. Upstairs in my closet, hidden inside a hollowed-out dictionary, is my encrypted laptop. Everything I've gathered on Natalie is on that drive. Financial records, shell companies, email correspondence, the recording from last night, and then there's the car, or rather, the lack of one. I don't own a car. Never have. FBI protocol for deep cover. No registration, no insurance, no paper trail. When I need transportation, the Bureau provides it. Day to day, I take the T. I take Uber. I walk. Right now, that means I'm stuck. And Natalie knows that. I sit back down staring at the two documents. Natalie has backed me into a corner. No money, no transportation. If I stay here, she'll send police to drag me to Brookline for a 72-hour hold. By the time I get out, she'll have filed the conservatorship petition and seized the life insurance payout. I need to move, but I need to move smart. I pick up the burner phone and dial. It rings twice. Then a voice answers. Low. Controlled. Jordan. Foster. Agent Marcus Foster. My handler. 7 years together. I trust him more than anyone, but right now, even he can't save me. I got the papers, I say. TRO and a Section 12. Natalie filed them yesterday. Pause. I hear him thinking. I know. We flagged it last night. Couldn't warn you, too risky. Can you pull me out? No. The word is flat. Final. If the Bureau intervenes now, it compromises everything. Natalie's lawyers will scream federal overreach. A judge could throw out every piece of evidence we've gathered, every email, every transaction, every recording. We lose her. I close my eyes. So what do? Play it out. Go to the bank. Let them see you react. We need Natalie to think she's winning. Let her believe you're exactly what she's painting: desperate, unstable, losing control. But Jordan, listen. Do not let them Section 12 you. If they commit you to Brookline, we lose control. Understand? I understand. Susan's on standby. If things go south, she'll extract you. Until then, you're on your own. Got it. And Jordan. His voice softened slightly. Be careful. Natalie's moving faster than we thought. She's not just desperate. She's cornered. And cornered people do dangerous things. I know. I hang up. Set the phone down. Stare out the window at the gray morning. No money, no car, no backup. Just me, $340, and a plan that depends on walking into a trap and pretending I don't see it. I have two choices: hide here and wait for the police to show up with a warrant, or go to the bank, confront them, and let Natalie get her video evidence. Hiding means Natalie wins by default, so I'm going to the bank. I hang up the phone and sit at my kitchen table staring at the documents spread in front of me. The TRO, the Section 12 petition. The clock on the wall says 7:45. The bank doesn't open until 9:30 on Saturdays. I have time. I go upstairs and change. I put on jeans, a worn sweater, sneakers. I pull my hair back into a ponytail, no makeup. I want to look exactly like what Natalie's painting me, as someone who's falling apart, someone who's desperate. Back downstairs, I open the cabinet and pull out a breakfast bar. I eat it standing at the counter, chewing mechanically, not tasting it. I count my cash again. $340. I tuck it into my wallet, slip the wallet into my jacket pocket. Then I sit back down at the table and wait. The house is silent. Outside, I can hear the occasional car passing footsteps on the sidewalk, the distant hum of the city waking up. Inside, there's just me and the sound of my own breathing. At 8:30, I check the subway schedule on my phone. Red Line runs every 12 minutes on Saturday mornings. If I leave at 9, I'll be downtown by 9:40. That gives me time to walk to the bank, arrive when it's been open for 10 minutes. Not too early, not too late. At 9 o'clock, I stand up, grab my jacket, and walk out the door. The February air hits me like a slap, cold, sharp. I pull my jacket tighter and start walking. 10 blocks to the T station. My breath comes out in white clouds. Jamaica Plain is quiet this early. A few joggers, a dog walker, someone scraping ice off a windshield. No one looks at me twice. I descend into the station, swipe my Charlie card, and step onto the platform. The Red Line train arrives 3 minutes later, already half full with weekend commuters. I squeeze into a spot near the door, gripping the pole as the train lurches forward into the tunnel. The ride takes 30 minutes. I don't sit. I just stand there swaying with the motion, watching stations flash by. Park Street, Downtown Crossing. I get off at Downtown Crossing, climb the stairs back into daylight, and walk 5 blocks through the financial district. Glass towers rise on either side. Men in suits hurry past, coffees in hand. No one notices me. By 10:30, I'm standing in the lobby of Commonwealth Bank and Trust. The bank is all polished stone and glass fluorescent lights reflecting off marble floors. 4 teller windows line the left wall desks for loan officers on the right, and a glass-walled office in the back corner with a brass nameplate, Robert Turner, branch manager. Security cameras hang from the ceiling at every angle. I walk to the nearest open teller window. The woman behind the counter is young, mid-20s blonde ponytail navy blazer with the bank's logo. Her name tag says Amanda. She looks up with a practiced smile that falters when she sees my face. "How can I help you?" "My account's been frozen. I need to know why." Her fingers move across the keyboard. The smile disappears. Her face pales. I see a court order here. You'll need to speak with Mr. Turner, our branch manager." "Where is he?" She points to the glass office. "He's in his office. Just knock first." I cross the lobby. A security guard near the entrance watches but doesn't move. I reach Turner's office and knock once on the glass. He looks up. 50 years old, gray suit, sharp features, cold eyes. He doesn't look surprised. He looks like he's been waiting. "Ms. Keller." He stands, smooths his tie, opens the door. "I was expecting you. Please come in." I step inside. He closes the door and gestures to a chair. I sit. He sits. We look at each other. "Why is my account frozen?" "We received a court order this morning, a temporary restraining order. I'm not at liberty to discuss details." "I have a right to access my own money." "Not when there's a court order." His tone is flat, clinical. "If you have an issue, take it up with the court." "I need to withdraw cash, at least enough to pay rent." "I can't allow that." "You can't allow it." My voice rises. The anger is real. "It's my money." "Not according to the court." I stand. "This is illegal. I haven't been notified. I haven't had a hearing." "Emergency orders don't require prior notification, Ms. Keller." He doesn't look sorry. He looks pleased. I step closer to his desk. "You're telling me I can't access a single dollar. How am I supposed to pay bills? How am I supposed to eat?" "You'll need to address that with the court." "I need to speak to a supervisor." "I'm the supervisor." I lean forward, palms flat on his desk. "Then unlock my account. Right now." He doesn't flinch. He reaches under his desk and presses something. A button. Within seconds, 2 security guards appear. Both men, both built like linebackers, black uniforms, expressionless. Turner stands. "Ms. Keller, I'm going to have to ask you to leave." That's when I see it. The camera in the corner of the office lens pointed at me. Another above the door. A third in the lobby aimed at Turner's glass office. Every angle covered. This is a setup. Turner isn't just following orders. He's part of it. He's baiting me, pushing me to lose control so Natalie can use the footage. Proof that I'm unstable. Exactly what she needs. And I've walked right into it. But I know it's a trap, which means I can control how I fall. I take a breath. Let my voice shake. Let the frustration show. "You can't do this. I need that money. I have bills. I have rent. I have..." One guard steps forward. "Ma'am, please leave." This is illegal. My voice is louder now, just shy of shouting. "I'm going to report this. I'm going to..." The guard takes my arm firm but not rough. I jerk it back, not violently, just enough resistance. Just enough for the cameras. "Don't touch me. I know my rights. You can't just..." "Ma'am, if you don't leave voluntarily, we'll escort you out." I look at Turner. He's standing behind his desk, arms crossed, watching with cold satisfaction. I let my shoulders sag. Let defeat show. Then I turn and walk to the door. The guards follow through the lobby, past the tellers, past Amanda with wide eyes, past customers who've stopped to watch. They walk me to the front door and watch as I step outside. The door closes with a soft click. I stand on the sidewalk, breathing hard, feeling cold air sting my lungs. Around me, the financial district hums. People walk past, glancing at me, looking away. Just another person having a bad day. I start walking. Not back to the T, not yet. I walk 2 blocks, turn a corner, lean against a brick wall, and close my eyes. Natalie has her video now. Footage of me losing my temper, raising my voice, resisting security. Perfect evidence for conservatorship. But here's what she doesn't know. In 6 days, when we're standing in front of Judge Chambers, when Montgomery plays that video and points to it as proof I'm unstable, I'm going to tell the court exactly what it is. A setup. Orchestrated by my sister. Facilitated by a corrupt bank manager. And when I do, Natalie's going to realize this was the biggest mistake of her life. I stand on the sidewalk outside the bank for a moment, catching my breath. Then I pull out my phone and open the Uber app. The screen loads. I enter my home address in Jamaica Plain. The app calculates 12 minutes away, $18. I tap to confirm. Payment method declined. Please update your payment information. Right, my bank account is frozen. My debit card doesn't work. I close the app and open my wallet. $340 in cash. But Uber doesn't take cash. And even if it did, using my FBI emergency card would leave a digital trail one Natalie's lawyers could subpoena. If they find out I have access to money under an alias, my cover collapses. Which means I'm walking. From downtown Boston to Jamaica Plain. 6 miles. Maybe 3 hours if I don't stop. Longer if I do. I start walking. It's just past 11 in the morning. The February air is cold and damp, the kind of cold that seeps through your jacket and settles into your bones. A light drizzle begins to fall. I don't have an umbrella. I pull my hood up and keep moving. I walk through the financial district past glass towers and men in expensive suits carrying brief caps and coffees. I pass Copley Square, the Boston Public Library with its stone lions standing guard. I cut through Back Bay past brownstones with flower boxes in the windows and cars that cost more than most people make in a year. No one looks at me. I'm invisible, just another woman walking in the rain. By noon, I'm crossing into Fenway. My feet are starting to hurt. The drizzle has turned into a steady, cold rain. My jacket is soaked through. I stop at a corner store and buy a bottle of water with cash. $2, 338 left. I keep walking. And as I walk, I think about my father. Michael Keller died 7 years ago when I was 22. It was ruled an accident. He was driving to work on a Tuesday morning heading west on Route 2, just outside the city. His brakes failed. He went off the road, hit a tree, and died on impact. The police said it was mechanical failure. Brake line corroded. Common in older cars. No reason to suspect foul play, but I knew better. A week before he died, my father called me into his office. He closed the door, sat me down, and looked at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Not anger, not sadness, fear. "Jordan," he said, "I need to tell you something. If anything happens to me, don't trust Natalie. She's not who you think she is." I remember laughing. Nervous, confused laughter. "Dad, what are you talking about?" "The life insurance," he continued. "I'm changing the beneficiary. It was Natalie. Now it's going to be you. When you turn 30, you'll get it. $3.2 million, but don't tell anyone, especially not your sister. Why?" He looked at me for a long moment. "Because she's desperate, Jordan, and desperate people do terrible things." 1 week later, he was dead. I didn't believe it was an accident, but I had no proof. I was 22 years old, fresh out of college, working a dead-end data entry job. What was I supposed to do? Accuse my sister of murder. Tell the police my father warned me a week before he died, so I did the only thing I could think of. I applied to the FBI. It took me 2 years to get in. Another year of training at Quantico, and then I was assigned to the Boston Field Office Financial Crimes Unit. I requested undercover work, deep cover, the kind where you disappear into a false identity and stay there for years. And I stayed. For 7 years, I've been Jordan Keller, unemployed freelancer, the family disappointment. And for 7 years, I've been building a case against my sister, following the money, tracing the shell companies, documenting every transaction, every email, every lie. Because my father was right. Natalie is desperate, and she did do something terrible. She killed him. And now, 7 years later, she's trying to finish what she started. By 3 o'clock, I'm in Mission Hill. My feet are screaming. My coat is soaked. I've still got 2 miles to go. I keep walking. By 6:30, the sun is setting. The rain has stopped, but the sky is gray and heavy. Streetlights flicker on. I turn onto my street in Jamaica Plain, and the first thing I notice is my front door. It's open. Just slightly. An inch, maybe 2. I stop on the sidewalk. Every muscle in my body tenses. I didn't leave the door open. I walk slowly up the steps, push the door open with my foot, and step inside. The living room is trashed. Couch cushions thrown on the floor, drawers pulled out and emptied, books swept off the shelves. Someone went through everything. I run upstairs to my office. The desk is a mess. Papers scattered. My laptop is untouched, encrypted, locked, useless to anyone without the password. But the notebooks are gone. 3 black notebooks. Handwritten notes. Details about Harbor Towers shell companies. Connor Flynn transactions. I couldn't trace digitally. 7 years of work written in ink. I checked the bathroom sink. Ashes, burned pages. The smell of smoke still hangs in the air. On the desk, there's a note. Handwritten. My mother's handwriting. Jordan. We did this for your own good. You're not well. We love you. I crumple the note in my fist and throw it across the room. They destroyed my notebooks. They came into my house, went through my things, and burned the evidence. But they don't know something. I have backups, encrypted files on my laptop, cloud storage under an alias. Every page of those notebooks was photographed and uploaded the same day I wrote it. FBI protocol. Never keep a single copy of anything. They think they've won. They think they've erased the evidence. But they've only made this easier. I sit down on the floor, my back against the wall. For the first time in 7 years, I feel it. Not fear, not anger, just exhaustion. Not because I lost the evidence. I didn't. Not because my accounts are frozen. I have the FBI emergency fund. But because I've finally seen it clearly. My family is willing to destroy me to get money. My mother wrote a note saying she loves me. And then she helped my sister break into my house and burn my work. I close my eyes and rest my head against the wall. Tomorrow they'll come for me. They'll try to Section 12 me, lock me up at Brookline Psychiatric Institute for 72 hours. And while I'm locked up, they'll file the conservatorship petition, seize control of the life insurance payout, and disappear the money before I can stop them. But I'm not going to let that happen. Because tomorrow morning, Susan is coming. My aunt, my father's sister. The only person in this family who ever told me the truth. And she's bringing the FBI with her. Sunday morning, 6 o'clock. I wake to the sound of a soft knock at the front door. For a moment, I just lie there on the couch, disoriented. I fell asleep around midnight, still in my damp clothes from yesterday's walk, too exhausted to climb the stairs to my bedroom. My body aches. My feet throb. The house is cold. The knock comes again. 3 gentle taps. I push myself up, walk to the window, and look out. A woman stands on my front stoop wearing a denim jacket and carrying 2 grocery bags. 58 years old, silver-streaked brown hair pulled into a low ponytail, sharp eyes that don't miss anything. Susan Blake, my father's sister, my aunt. I open the door. I brought breakfast, she says, her voice calm and matter-of-fact. Can I come in? I nod and step aside. She walks and glances at the trashed living room couch cushions still on the floor, drawers still pulled out, and doesn't say a word about it. She just heads straight to the kitchen, sets the grocery bags on the counter, and starts unpacking. Bread, eggs, butter, coffee, orange juice. Sit, she says, nodding toward the small kitchen table. I sit. She fills the kettle, sets it on the stove, and pulls out a frying pan. I heard about the restraining order, she says, cracking eggs into a bowl, and the Section 12 petition. How did you know? She glances at me over her shoulder, a slight smile on her lips. I still have friends at the Bureau. I blink. The Bureau FBI, she says, turning back to the stove. Where do you think I worked for 25 years before I retired? And just like that, the pieces click into place. Susan Blake isn't just my aunt. She's former FBI Financial Crimes Unit. Boston Field Office. She retired in 2015, the same year I started at Quantico, and I never knew. Your cover was teacher, I say slowly. Retired teacher. She corrects, whisking the eggs. It was convincing enough. Your father knew, of course, but no one else. Not Barbara, not Natalie. She pours the eggs into the pan. After your father died, I tried to investigate. I suspected Natalie, but I had no proof, no jurisdiction. I was retired, and when I tried to warn Barbara, Natalie shut me out, stopped inviting me to family gatherings, told everyone I was bitter and jealous. She pauses, stirring the eggs, so I waited and watched. For 7 years. For 7 years. She divides the eggs onto 2 plates, adds toast, and sets one in front of me. I know about Harbor Towers. I know about Connor Flynn. And I know she killed your father. I stare at her. I suspected. The brake line failure was too convenient, but I couldn't prove it. She sits down across from me with her own plate. Then last year, Agent Foster contacted me, said you'd joined the Bureau, said you were working undercover, and I knew you were doing what I couldn't. I pick up my fork but don't eat. Why didn't you tell me? Because you had to do this on your own. If I'd interfered, Natalie would have suspected. She had to believe you were exactly what she thought you were: unemployed, unstable, isolated, and you played the part perfectly. Until yesterday. Susan nods. Until yesterday. Now she's moving. Fast. She takes a bite of toast, chews, swallows. Natalie's coming for you today. She'll bring Barbara. Probably Dr. Reed. They'll try to take you to Brookline Psychiatric under Section 12. Once you're committed for 72 hours, she'll file the conservatorship petition and seize control of the life insurance payout. I know. So we don't let her take you. Susan sets down her fork and looks at me directly. We let her think she's winning, but we gather evidence. I'm going to wear a wire. I'll meet with Natalie and Barbara tomorrow. I'll pretend I'm worried about you, and I'll get them to confess. What if they don't talk? They will. Natalie's overconfident. She thinks she's untouchable, and Barbara's weak. She'll crack under pressure. Susan reaches into her jacket pocket and pulls out a small device, a digital recorder no bigger than a USB drive. This is FBI-grade encryption. It's admissible in court. All I need is one confession. About your father's death, about the conservatorship plan, anything. Tonight I'll reach out to Natalie. Tell her I'm concerned about you. She'll invite me for coffee, and I'll record everything. I look at the device in her hand. It's so small, so simple. 7 years of work could come down to one conversation. But Jordan, Susan says, her voice serious now, you need to understand something. In 45 days, you turn 30. That's when the life insurance payout releases. $3.2 million. If Natalie doesn't have conservatorship by then, she loses. So she's going to push hard, and she's going to get desperate. I can handle it. I know you can. But desperate people do terrible things. She leans forward. Your father told me that before he died. And he was right. I meet her eyes. Why are you helping me? Susan doesn't hesitate. Because you're Michael's daughter, and because Natalie killed my brother. I want justice as much as you do. We sit in silence for a moment. Outside, the neighborhood is waking up. A dog barks. A car drives past. The morning light filters through the kitchen window, pale and gray. Susan stands and picks up the empty plates. They'll be here in a few hours. Are you ready? I'm ready. But I'm not ready. Because 2 hours later, when Natalie and Barbara show up at my door, they're not alone. The first knock came at 8:53. I was standing in the kitchen, staring at the burned notebook still sitting in the sink, when the sound echoed through the empty townhouse. 3 sharp raps, deliberate and official. Susan had left an hour ago. She'd driven off in her old Honda CR-V, promising she'd be back tonight with a plan. But we both knew that Natalie wouldn't wait that long. The Section 12 petition had been filed on Friday. The clock was ticking. I walked to the front door and opened it. Natalie stood on the stoop in a charcoal wool coat, her arms crossed her face, a mask of concern that didn't quite reach her eyes. Behind her, Barbara clutched a tissue to her face, already crying. And beside them, a man I'd never met, but immediately recognized from the petition paperwork, Dr. Anthony Reed. He was in his early 50s, tall and thin, with silver hair and wire-rimmed glasses. He wore a navy suit and carried a leather briefcase. Everything about him screamed authority. He extended his hand. "Ms. Keller," he said. His voice was calm, clinical. I'm Dr. Anthony Reed. I'm here to conduct an emergency psychiatric evaluation under Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 123, Section 12. I didn't take his hand. I looked past him to the two uniformed officers standing on the sidewalk beside a marked Boston police cruiser. "You don't need to do this," I said, keeping my voice steady. "I'm not a danger to myself or anyone else." Natalie stepped forward. "Jordan, please, we're trying to help you." I wanted to laugh. I wanted to scream. Instead, I looked at Dr. Reed. "You've never met me," I said. "How can you evaluate someone you've never spoken to?" He opened his briefcase and pulled out a manila folder. "I've reviewed the documentation provided by your family. The petition outlines several concerning incidents, including delusional statements, erratic behavior, and a violent episode at a financial institution yesterday morning." The bank, of course. Turner had called them the moment I'd left. Dr. Reed adjusted his glasses. "Based on the evidence, I have reasonable grounds to believe you pose a risk of serious harm due to mental illness. I'm authorized to sign an order for emergency evaluation and hospitalization." He pulled a pen from his pocket and signed the bottom of a form with a flourish. Just like that. $25,000, Susan had said. That's what Natalie had paid him to do this. I could see it in the way he avoided my eyes, the way his hand moved too quickly across the paper. "This is illegal," I said. Barbara sobbed louder. "Jordan, sweetheart, please don't make this harder." One of the officers stepped forward. "Ma'am, we need you to come with us." I looked at Natalie. She smiled. It was small, almost imperceptible, but I saw it. This was her moment. She thought she'd won. I took a breath. I had to play this right. If I fought, if I resisted, it would only make things worse. Susan had warned me, "Don't blow your cover. Let them think they have you." "Fine," I said. "I'll go." Natalie blinked. She'd been expecting a fight. "You will?" Barbara said, hope creeping into her voice. I stepped back into the house and grabbed my jacket. I slipped it on slowly, giving myself time to think. My phone was in my pocket, one of the burner phones Susan had left me. When I turned back, Dr. Reed was already walking toward the cruiser. The female officer gestured for me to follow. "Let's make this easy," she said. I walked down the steps. Natalie and Barbara followed at a distance. As I reached the sidewalk, I glanced back at the townhouse. The door was still open. The officer opened the back door of the cruiser. No handcuffs. I slid into the seat and she closed the door with a soft click. The locks engaged automatically. Natalie leaned down and tapped on the window. I didn't look at her. The engine started. Dr. Reed climbed into the front passenger seat. The second officer, a middle-aged man with a thick Boston accent, got behind the wheel. "Brookline Psychiatric Institute," Dr. Reed said. 20 minutes. We pulled away from the curb. I watched Jamaica Plain slide past the window, the brick row houses, the corner stores, the bare trees lining the streets. The city looked gray and cold under the March sky. "You're doing the right thing," Dr. Reed said, glancing back at me. "This evaluation is for your own safety." I didn't respond. I was thinking about the $25,000, about the email Susan would find, about the wire she'd wear tomorrow when she visited Natalie. The cruiser turned onto Huntington Avenue, heading west toward Brookline. Traffic was light on a Sunday morning. We passed the Museum of Fine Arts, the brownstones of the Fenway, the campus of Simmons University. At 9:42, we turned onto a narrow side street and stopped in front of a tall brick building, surrounded by a wrought iron fence. A sign by the gate read, "Brookline Psychiatric Institute, Emergency Services." The officer unlocked the doors. Dr. Reed stepped out first and opened my door. "This way," he said. I followed him through the gate and up a concrete path to the entrance. The building was old institutional with narrow windows and heavy double doors. Inside, the lobby smelled like disinfectant and stale coffee. A security guard sat behind a desk, and a nurse in pale blue scrubs waited by a set of locked interior doors. "Doctor." Reed handed her the signed Section 12 form. She scanned it, nodded, and looked at me. "Ms. Keller, I'm Nurse Patel. I'll be processing your intake. Please follow me." The interior doors buzzed open. Beyond them was a long hallway painted institutional beige with fluorescent lights overhead and linoleum floors that squeaked under my shoes. We passed a day room where a television played silently, a medication station, a row of closed doors. Nurse Patel stopped at a small office and gestured for me to sit. "I need to collect your personal belongings. Phone, wallet, keys, jewelry." I pulled the burner phone from my pocket and set it on the desk. My wallet, my house keys. She placed everything in a clear plastic bag and sealed it with a label. "You'll get these back when you're discharged." "When will that be?" I asked. "The 72-hour hold begins now. Doctor, Reed will conduct your evaluation over the next 3 days." 72 hours. 3 days locked in here while Natalie dismantled my life outside. "Can I make a phone call?" I asked. "Not until after your initial evaluation," Nurse Patel said. "Hospital policy." She led me down another hallway to a small room with a bed, a chair, and a narrow window reinforced with wire mesh. The door had a lock on the outside. "Someone will be in to see you shortly," she said. Then she stepped out and closed the door. I heard the lock click. I sat on the bed. The mattress was thin, the blanket scratchy. The window looked out onto a courtyard enclosed by high walls. But I wasn't worried. Not yet. Natalie thought she'd trapped me. She thought that with me locked in here, she could finalize the conservatorship, seize my assets, and take control of the life insurance payout in 43 days. She didn't know about Susan. She didn't know about the wire. She didn't know that in 12 hours I'd be walking out of here. I lay back on the bed and stared at the ceiling. 12 hours. I could do 12 hours. Outside, somewhere in Boston, Susan was already moving. And when I got out, Natalie was going to realize this was the biggest mistake of her life. The room was dark. I lay on the thin mattress, staring at the ceiling, counting the hours. 8 o'clock, 9, 10. The fluorescent light in the hallway hummed through the gap under the door. Somewhere down the corridor, a woman was crying. Somewhere else, a man was shouting at shadows. Susan had promised she'd have a plan. I just didn't know what it would look like. At 10 o'clock, the lights went out. Not just in my room, everywhere. The hallway went dark. The humming stopped. For a moment, there was silence. Then the fire alarm started screaming. Red emergency lights flashed in the corridor. I sat up. Footsteps pounded past my doorstaff patient's security. Someone was shouting instructions I couldn't hear over the noise. Then my door flew open. A nurse stood there, breathless, her scrubs disheveled. "Ms. Keller, we have an emergency situation. We need to move you to the medical wing." "What's happening?" I asked. "Just come with me. Now." I didn't argue. I swung my legs off the bed and followed her into the hallway. The scene was chaos. Patients stumbled out of their rooms, blinking in the strobing red light. Staff members herded them toward the day room. Security guards ran in the opposite direction, radios crackling. The nurse grabbed my arm and pulled me toward the far end of the corridor, away from the main group. "This way." We turned a corner. Ahead of us, an emergency exit door stood wide open. The door that was always locked. The door that was never supposed to be open. The nurse looked at me. "Go." I stared at her. "What? Go," she said again. "You have 30 seconds before someone notices." I didn't wait for her to change her mind. I ran. The stairwell was concrete and cold, lit only by the red emergency lights. I took the stairs 2 at a time, my bare feet slapping against the steps. My heart hammered in my chest. I hit the ground floor and shoved open the exterior door. Cold night air hit my face. I was in the ambulance bay, a narrow strip of asphalt behind the building. And there, engine running, was Susan's Honda CR-V. Susan leaned across and pushed the passenger door open. "Get in." I didn't need to be told twice. I jumped into the seat and Susan hit the gas before I'd even closed the door. We shot out of the parking lot and onto the side street, tires squealing. "What did you do?" I asked, breathless. Susan kept her eyes on the road. Agent Foster called in a fake medical emergency patient in anaphylactic shock in the high-security wing. While everyone was distracted, I pulled the fire alarm and triggered the emergency exit locks remotely. FBI still has a few friends in facilities management. I stared at her. "You hacked the fire system." "I didn't hack anything," Susan said. I made a phone call. We turned onto Beacon Street, blending into the sparse late-night traffic. Susan drove carefully, obeying every speed limit, signaling every turn. Nothing that would draw attention. "Where are we going?" I asked. "Somewhere safe." We drove north on Route 1, past strip malls and gas stations and fast food restaurants with flickering neon signs. The city fell away behind us. After 20 minutes, Susan pulled into the parking lot of a low-slung motel with a faded sign that read, Riverside Inn. The place looked like it hadn't been updated since the 80s. Peeling paint, cracked asphalt, no security cameras that I could see. Susan parked near the office and got out. "Wait here." I watched her through the window as she went inside and spoke to the clerk at the desk. She paid cash, $60. The clerk handed her a key attached to a plastic tag. Room 12. Susan came back to the car and drove around to the side of the building, second floor. We climbed the exterior stairs and Susan unlocked the door. The room was small and smelled like cigarettes and mildew. A double bed with a sagging mattress. A television older than I was. A bathroom with a dripping faucet. But it was warm, and it was safe. Susan locked the door behind us and drew the curtains. "You'll stay here for the next 3 days. Don't leave. Don't use your phone. Natalie's probably tracking it." "I left my phone at Brookline," I said. "They took it during intake. I still have the burner you gave me." "Good. Keep it off unless you need to reach me." Susan set a canvas bag on the bed. Inside were clothes, toiletries, granola bars, bottled water. "I'll bring you food and anything else you need. In the meantime, you need to go through everything you have on Natalie. We need ironclad evidence for the hearing on Wednesday." "What about you?" I asked. "What are you going to do?" Susan met my eyes. "Tomorrow I'm going to visit Natalie and Barbara. I'll be wearing a wire. And I'm going to make them confess." I sat down on the edge of the bed. For the first time in 3 days, I could breathe. My feet were cold and dirty from running barefoot through Brookline. My hands were shaking from adrenaline, but I was out. "Susan," I said, "once we do this, once we play the recording, there's no going back. Natalie will go to prison. Barbara will go to prison. The family as I knew it will be gone." Susan nodded slowly. "I know. Are you sure you want to do this?" She looked at me for a long moment. Her expression was hard, but there was something else in her eyes. Grief, maybe, or regret. "Jordan," she said quietly, "they stopped being family the day they killed your father." I felt something tighten in my chest. My father. Michael Keller. The man who'd taught me how to ride a bike, how to tie a tie, how to stand up for what was right. The man whose brake line had been cut 7 years ago on a rainy night in February. "Okay," I said. "Then we do this." Susan reached into her jacket and pulled out a small black device, a digital voice recorder no bigger than a USB drive. "This is FBI grade, encrypted. If I can get them to talk, this will capture every word." She set it on the nightstand. "Get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be a long day." She turned to leave, but I stopped her. "Susan," I said. "Thank you." She looked back at me and nodded. "Your father would have done the same for you." Then she was gone. I locked the door behind her and sat back down on the bed. The motel was quiet. Outside, I could hear the occasional car passing on Route 1. Inside, the radiator clanked and hissed. I pulled the burner phone from my pocket and stared at it. I wanted to call Agent Foster. I wanted to check in. But Susan was right. Any call could be traced. Any signal could give me away. So I turned the phone off and set it on the nightstand beside the recorder. Tomorrow, Susan would meet Natalie. She'd wear the wire. She'd ask the right questions. And by tomorrow night, we'd have everything we needed to destroy my sister. I lay back on the bed and closed my eyes. 3 days. That's all I needed. 3 days until the hearing. 3 days until I could walk into that courtroom and blow Natalie's world apart. I could do 3 days. Monday morning. I woke up at 6, showered in the dingy motel bathroom, and made instant coffee with the ancient machine on the dresser. By 8 o'clock, I was sitting cross-legged on the bed, my encrypted laptop balanced on my knees, the curtains drawn tight against the daylight. I logged into the secure cloud storage under one of my aliases. The files were all there, backups of everything from the notebooks Barbara had burned, financial records, email threads, transaction histories, shell company registrations, everything I'd been collecting for months. I opened the Harbor Towers file first. The numbers were stark. $35 million in municipal bonds issued to fund the construction of affordable housing for 120 low-income families in South Boston. The project had been Natalie's flagship achievement as CEO of Keller Development. She'd held a press conference, shaken hands with the mayor, posed for photos with smiling families who'd been promised a chance at homeownership, and then $22 million had disappeared. I clicked through the transaction records. The money had moved fast, from the Harbor Towers construction account to a holding company called Seabreeze Holdings, registered in the Cayman Islands, then from Seabreeze to Oceanview Capital, then from Oceanview to Blue Horizon LLC, each transfer carefully spaced, each one just below the threshold that would trigger automatic federal reporting. At the end of the chain, the money landed in an offshore account. Owner unknown, but I knew who owned it. I just needed to prove it. I opened the email archive, thousands of messages. I'd spent weeks sorting through them, flagging anything that mentioned Flynn Turner or Harbor Towers. Now I went back through the flagged messages looking for the smoking gun. I found it at 10:30. The first email was dated January 15, 2025. From Natalie Keller to CF subject Harbor Towers. The project is running behind schedule. I need more time to move the funds. Can you give me 60 days from CF to Natalie Keller? Subject RE Harbor Towers 60 days, not 1 day more. If the feds start asking questions, you're on your own. Connor Flynn, the name that had come up again and again in my investigation. Winter Hill associate, money launderer, the man who'd been moving dirty cash through Boston real estate for a decade, and my sister's business partner. I sat back against the headboard and stared at the screen. This was it. This was the connection I needed. Natalie wasn't just embezzling from Harbor Towers, she was laundering money for the Irish mob. I kept reading. At 11 o'clock, I found the second email, from Natalie Keller to r.turner@commonwealthbank.com. Subject Jordan date, February 28, 2025. The account freeze has been executed. Make sure she can't access any cash. And when she shows up at the bank, record everything. I need proof that she's unstable. From r.turner@commonwealthbank.com to Natalie Keller, subject R.E. Jordan date, February 28, 2025 done. Cameras are ready. She'll walk right into it. I felt my jaw clench. Turner wasn't just a bank manager. He was an informant. He worked for Flynn, monitoring federal investigations and reporting back. That's how Natalie had known to move so fast. That's how she'd known I was closing in. Turner had sold me out. I took a breath and kept working. By 2 o'clock, I had the complete picture. I opened a new document and started building the evidence file. Evidence package Natalie Keller / Connor Flynn. Financial records Harbor. Towers bond issuance $35 million. Funds transferred to shell companies $22,000. 000. Chain of custody. Harbor Towers to Seabreeze Holdings, Cayman to Oceanview Capital Cayman to Blue Horizon, LLC Cayman to offshore account. Email correspondence Natalie Keller to Connor Flynn C. F. Coordination of fund transfers. 60-day timeline. Federal investigation concerns Natalie Keller to Richard Turner. Conspiracy to freeze accounts. Surveillance coordination. Fabrication of instability evidence. Shell company documentation. Seabreeze Holdings, registered Cayman Islands, the 8th of December 2024. Oceanview Capital, registered Cayman Islands, 15th of December 2024. Blue Horizon LLC, registered Cayman Islands, 3rd of January 2025. False psychiatric evaluation doctor. Anthony Reed, Section 12. Petition March 1st, 2025. Payment $25,000. Suspected unconfirmed temporary restraining order. Filed by Natalie Keller, February 28th. 2025, signed by Judge Edward Chambers. Audio recording, Barbara Keller's 60th birthday party, February 28th, 2025. Conversation. Natalie and Barbara discussing trust fund seizure plan. I encrypted the entire file, uploaded it to the FBI's secure server, and sent a copy directly to Agent Foster's classified inbox. Then I sat back and waited. At 5 o'clock, my burner phone buzzed. Foster. "I got the file," he said. "This is solid, Jordan. We have enough to arrest Natalie, Turner, and Flynn right now." "Not yet," I said. "We need the confession. We need them on record admitting what they did to my father. Jordan, if we wait, Natalie could run." "She won't run," I said. "She thinks she's winning. She thinks I'm locked up in Brookline and she's 42 days away from $3.2 million. She's not going anywhere." Foster was quiet for a moment. "What about Susan? Is she ready?" "She meets them tomorrow," I said. "She'll get the confession, and then we'll have everything. And if she doesn't..." I looked at the laptop screen, at the evidence file I'd just compiled, at the emails, at the money trail, at the names. "Then we still have enough to put them away for 20 years, I said. "But I want justice for my father, and that means I need them to say it out loud." Foster sighed. "All right, but Jordan, be careful. These people have already killed once. They won't hesitate to do it again." "I know," I said. I hung up and set the phone down on the nightstand. Outside, the sun was setting. The motel room was growing dark. I could hear traffic on Route 1, the steady hum of cars heading north toward the city. Tomorrow, Susan would visit Natalie and Barbara. She'd wear the wire. She'd ask the right questions. And if everything went according to plan by tomorrow night, we'd have the final piece of evidence we needed, the confession. I closed the laptop and lay back on the bed. My body ached from sitting still all day. My eyes burned from staring at the screen. But I felt something I hadn't felt in days. Hope. 2 more days. That's all I needed. 2 more days until the hearing. 2 more days until I could walk into that courtroom and destroy Natalie once and for all. I could do 2 more days. At 8 o'clock Monday night, I turned on the television. I'd spent the entire day hunched over my laptop, and my eyes ached from staring at financial spreadsheets and email threads. I needed a break. I needed to hear voices that weren't my own thoughts echoing in my head. I flipped to Boston 7 News. The anchor was mid-sentence, her expression serious. "Breaking news tonight. Boston police are searching for Jordan Keller, age 29, who escaped from Brookline Psychiatric Institute late last night. Keller was admitted under Section 12 for emergency psychiatric evaluation. Authorities say she may be a danger to herself. If you see her, please contact Boston police immediately." My driver's license photo filled the screen, the one where I looked tired and vaguely annoyed, taken 3 years ago at the DMV. I stared at the television. Then I turned it off. For a long moment, I sat in the silence of the motel room. The only sound was the hum of the ancient refrigerator and the distant rush of traffic on Route 1. I picked up my burner phone and dialed Foster. He answered on the first ring. "I know," he said before I could speak. "I'm watching it now. There's a warrant out for my arrest," I said. My voice sounded flat, detached. "Natalie's playing this perfectly," Foster said. "She's making you the villain, the unstable sister who escaped from a psychiatric facility, the dangerous fugitive. Can you pull the warrant? No." His voice was firm. "If the Bureau intervenes now, your cover is blown. Natalie's lawyers will argue federal overreach, and the judge could throw out everything we've built. We have to let this play out." I closed my eyes. "So what do I do?" "You stay hidden. You don't leave that motel. You don't use your real name. Susan will bring you food. And in 2 days, when we walk into that courtroom, we'll reveal everything, and the warrant becomes irrelevant. And if someone recognizes me before then..." Foster was quiet for a moment, then he said, "Then we lose." I hung up and set the phone down on the nightstand. I sat on the edge of the bed, my head resting against the wall, my hands folded in my lap. For the first time in 7 years, I felt completely alone. Not just physically alone, I'd been alone plenty of times during this investigation. Alone in surveillance vans, alone in rented apartments, alone at family dinners where I smiled and nodded while secretly recording every word. But this was different. This was a different kind of isolation. I had no family. Natalie and Barbara were trying to lock me up. My father was dead, murdered by the people who were supposed to love him. My mother, wherever she was, had never been part of my life. I had no friends. 7 years undercover meant 7 years of lies, no close relationships, no one I could trust. Every conversation was calculated, every smile was strategic. I had Susan, and I had Foster. But Susan was risking everything to help me, and Foster was bound by rules and protocols that sometimes felt like chains. I thought about my father, Michael Keller, the man who'd taught me how to throw a baseball, how to change a tire, how to stand up when someone knocked you down. The man whose funeral I'd attended 7 years ago, knowing in my gut that it wasn't an accident, but unable to prove it. 7 years. I'd spent 7 years chasing Natalie. 7 years building a case. 7 years pretending to be someone I wasn't, the unemployed little sister, the failure, the burden. And now, 2 days before the hearing, I was hiding in a motel room, watching my face on the evening news, hoping no one would recognize me. This was the cost of going undercover. You gave up everything, your identity, your family, your life for the mission. And sometimes it felt like the mission was all you had left. At 9 o'clock, there was a knock on the door. 3 soft taps. I looked through the peephole. Susan. I unlocked the door and let her in. She was carrying a paper bag from a diner down the road, sandwich fries, bottled water. I saw the news, she said quietly. Yeah. Are you okay? I'm fine. She set the bag on the small table by the window and turned to look at me. No, you're not. But you will be. In 2 days, this will be over. Natalie will be in prison. Barbara will be in prison. And you'll get your life back. I don't even know what my life is anymore, I said. Susan sat down on the edge of the bed. Then you'll figure it out after this is over. But first, we have to finish what your father started. I looked at her. She was 58 years old, retired from the FBI, living a quiet life as a supposed schoolteacher. But right now, sitting in this dingy motel room, she looked like the agent she used to be. Focused, determined, ready to fight. Tomorrow, she said, I'm meeting with Natalie and Barbara. I'll be wearing the wire, and I'm going to make them tell me what they did. What if they don't talk? I asked. They will. Susan's voice was calm, certain. I know how to get them to talk. I've been doing this for 25 years. I nodded. Okay. Susan stood. Get some rest. Tomorrow's going to be a long day. She moved toward the door, then paused. Jordan, she said, your father would be proud of you. You know that, right? I felt something tighten in my chest. I hope so. He would be. She opened the door. I'll see you tomorrow night. Then she was gone. I locked the door behind her and sat back down on the bed. The sandwich sat on the table still warm. I should eat. I knew I should eat. But I wasn't hungry. I lay back and stared at the ceiling. The motel room was quiet. Outside, I could hear the occasional car passing, the hum of the neon sign flickering in the parking lot. Tomorrow, Susan would meet Natalie. She'd wear the wire. She'd ask the right questions. And if it worked, if we got the confession, then none of this would matter. The warrant, the news, the humiliation, it would all become evidence. And Natalie would become a prisoner. I closed my eyes. 2 more days, just 2 more days. I could do this. Tuesday morning, 7:30. I was sitting on the bed in the motel room, my encrypted laptop open, my burner phone in my hand. The curtains were drawn. The door was locked. And I was about to listen to my aunt walk into a room with 2 women who wanted to destroy me. My phone buzzed. Susan. I'm ready, she said. Her voice was calm, steady. The wire is on. Can you hear me? I opened the audio monitoring app on my laptop. A green waveform flickered on the screen. Loud and clear. Good, I'm calling her now. I heard the dial tone through my earpiece. Then Natalie's voice, bright and pleasant. Aunt Susan, what a surprise. Natalie, sweetheart. I heard about Jordan. I'm so worried. Can we talk? There was a pause. I could almost see Natalie calculating, weighing her options. Of course, Natalie said finally. I'm so glad you called. Mom and I have been trying to reach you. I want to help, Susan said. Where should we meet? Cafe Nero, downtown, 8 o'clock. I'll bring my mother. I'll see you there. Susan hung up. Then a moment later, she spoke directly to me. She took the bait. I'm going to get it all on tape. I watched the clock. 7:45, 8 o'clock. I put in my earpiece and listened. At 8:15, I heard the sounds of the cafe espresso machines, hissing chairs scraping against tile floors, voices murmuring in the background. Then Susan's voice clear and close. Natalie, Barbara, thank you for meeting me. Aunt Susan. Natalie's voice was warm, saccharine. Thank you for coming. I heard the sound of an embrace. Then Barbara's voice trembling and anxious. We're so worried about Jordan. She's not well. What happened? Susan asked. I heard she was at Brookline. She was, Natalie said. But she escaped. The police are looking for her everywhere. We don't know where she is. Escaped? Why would she do that? Natalie sighed, a performance of exasperation. Because she's paranoid Aunt Susan. She thinks we're trying to hurt her. But we're not. We're trying to help her. I clenched my jaw. I wanted to scream, but I forced myself to stay silent to listen. What can I do? Susan asked. If she contacts you, Natalie said, please call us immediately. We need to find her before she hurts herself. There was a pause. Then Susan spoke again, her voice softer, more concerned. I still don't understand. Why was she at Brookline in the first place? Barbara jumped in, her voice high and nervous. She's been unstable for years. No job, no income. Just sitting in that house, writing in those notebooks. We had to take her in under Section 12, Natalie interrupted smoothly, for her own safety. And the conservatorship, Susan asked. I held my breath. There was a long pause. Then Natalie's voice cautious. How do you know about that? I heard through the family, Susan said. You know how people talk. Natalie exhaled. It's a precautionary measure. Jordan is turning 30 soon. There's a life insurance policy, $3.2 million. If she's deemed incapable of managing that money, someone needs to step in. And that someone is you. I'm her sister, Natalie said. Who else would it be? And the money, Susan pressed. What will you do with it? I could hear the tension in Natalie's voice now. She was being careful. I'll use it to take care of Jordan, to get her the help she needs. Then Barbara spoke, her voice breaking. We need that money, Susan. The company is in trouble. If we don't, Mom. Natalie's voice was sharp. Barbara went silent. I stared at the laptop screen. The waveform was spiking. Barbara had been loud, almost frantic, and then Natalie had cut her off. Susan let the silence hang for a moment. Then she spoke again, her voice neutral, curious. So this is about the company. It's about family, Natalie said firmly. It's about making sure Jordan is safe. Of course, Susan said. Well, if I hear from her, I'll let you know. Thank you, Aunt Susan. That means so much to us. I heard the sounds of chairs moving goodbyes being exchanged. Then Susan's voice, quieter now, speaking directly to the wire. I'm leaving. Recording is secure. 10 minutes later, there was a knock on my motel room door. I opened it. Susan stepped inside, her face pale but composed. I got it, she said. She pulled the digital recorder from under her blouse and set it on the table. Natalie admitted the conservatorship is about the money. Barbara almost gave everything away. I played back the recording on my laptop. Barbara's voice desperate and raw. We need that money. Susan, the company is in trouble. And Natalie's voice cold and controlled. Mom. This is admissible, I said. This proves motive. This proves conspiracy. Susan nodded. But it's not enough. I looked at her. What do you mean? We have evidence that they're trying to steal your money, Susan said. But we don't have evidence that they killed your father. That's what we really need, Jordan. That's the confession that will put them away for life. I sat back on the bed. She was right. The recording was damning. It proved fraud, conspiracy, maybe even false imprisonment, but it didn't prove murder. So what do? I asked. Susan was quiet for a moment. Then she looked at me, her expression hard. "I go back," she said. "Tomorrow, I push harder. I ask about Michael and I make them tell me what they did." I felt something cold settle in my chest. "That's dangerous. If they suspect you're working with me—" "They won't," Susan said. "They think I'm just a worried aunt. They think I'm on their side." I looked at her. She was 58 years old. She'd been retired for years, but right now she looked like the agent she used to be. Focused, determined, ready to do whatever it took. "Okay," I said. "One more time, tomorrow." Susan picked up the recorder and slipped it back into her bag. "Get some rest. Tomorrow's the day we finish this." She left. I sat alone in the motel room staring at the laptop screen. The waveform was still there, frozen on the moment Barbara had said, "We need that money." We had proof of conspiracy. We had proof of motive. But we didn't have the full truth. Not yet. Tomorrow, Susan would go back. She'd push harder. She'd ask the questions that mattered. And if everything went right by tomorrow night, we'd have the confession we needed. The confession about my father. One more day. That's all we needed. One more day until the hearing. One more day until I could walk into that courtroom and bring Natalie's world crashing down. I could do one more day. At 1 o'clock Tuesday afternoon, my phone buzzed. Susan. "She called," Susan said. Her voice was steady, but I could hear the tension underneath. "Natalie wants me to come to the house. She says there are things I don't know. Things about the family." I sat up on the motel bed. "She's inviting you to the estate." "Yes, she wants to talk privately. Just her Barbara and me." I felt my pulse quicken. This is it. She's going to open up. "That's what I'm thinking," Susan said. "She thinks I'm on her side. She thinks I'm family." "Be careful," I said. "If she suspects anything—" "She won't. I know how to handle her." I heard the sound of her putting on the wire, the soft click of the recorder, the rustle of fabric. "Battery's good for 4 hours," Susan said. "Audio is clear. I'm leaving now." "I'll be listening," I said. She hung up. I put in my earpiece and opened the monitoring app on my laptop. At 2:15, I heard Susan's voice. "Natalie. Barbara. Thank you for inviting me." Natalie's voice was warm, but there was something underneath it. Something calculating. "Aunt Susan, come in. We're so glad you're here." I heard footsteps, heels on marble. The sound of a door closing. Then the softer sounds of a living room, the creak of a sofa, the rustle of cushions. "Please sit," Natalie said. "Can I get you anything tea-coffee?" "I'm fine," Susan said. "What did you want to talk about?" There was a pause. Then Natalie spoke, her voice quieter now. "About Jordan and about the family legacy. Aunt Susan, you're Michael's sister. You understood him better than anyone. Did he ever talk to you about us?" "What do you mean?" Susan asked, Barbara's voice trembling. "About how Natalie became part of the family." Susan played it perfectly. "I know you adopted her when she was a baby." Natalie's voice sharpened. "How do you know that—" "Michael told me years ago," Susan said smoothly. "He said it didn't matter you were his daughter, blood or not." Natalie laughed. It was a bitter sound. "He said that, but he didn't mean it. When he died, he'd changed the life insurance beneficiary to Jordan. Not me. Jordan, his real daughter." "Natalie, that's not— don't." Natalie's voice was cold. "I know what it was. He found out I knew, that I'd known for years, and he punished me for it." Barbara's voice breaking. "We never wanted you to find out that way." "I found out when I was 16. Mom, I found the adoption papers in your bedroom, and I never said anything, because I thought maybe if I worked hard enough, if I was successful enough, he'd treat me like I mattered." I sat frozen on the motel bed listening. 16. She'd known since she was 16. Susan's voice was careful, measured. "He did treat you." "He left me nothing," Natalie said. $3.2 million for Jordan. And what did I get? The company drowning in debt. So I did what I had to do. There was a long silence. Then Susan spoke. "What do you mean? What you had to do?" Another pause. Then Natalie's voice cold and clear. I took care of it. Took care of what? Him, Michael. That accident wasn't an accident, Aunt Susan. Barbara gasped. Natalie. She knows Mom. Look at her face. She's not surprised. I could barely breathe. My hands were shaking. I pressed the earpiece deeper into my ear. Susan's voice was calm, neutral. What did you do? I cut the brake line, Natalie said. February 14th, 2018. He was driving to work. The brakes failed on Route 2. He went off the road, hit a tree, killed instantly. Barbara was sobbing now. We didn't have a choice. Susan's voice was sharp now. I knew, Barbara said. I knew what she was planning, and I didn't stop her. Mom helped me, Natalie said. She let me into the garage the night before. She made sure the cameras weren't working. And after he died, we played the grieving family. The police never suspected. I felt tears running down my face. My father who'd taught me how to ride a bike, who'd helped me with my homework, who'd told me I could be anything I wanted to be. They killed him. Susan's voice was tight. Why would you kill your own father? Because he was going to cut me out, Natalie said. He told me 2 weeks before he died he was changing his will. Everything would go to Jordan. The company, the house, the life insurance, I'd get nothing. So I made sure that didn't happen. Barbara's voice desperate. But it didn't work. He'd changed the beneficiary a week before he died. We didn't know until after he was gone. And by then, it was too late, Natalie said. So I spent 7 years waiting for Jordan to turn 30, waiting for that $3.2 million to be released. And now I'm going to take it. Susan stood. I could hear the chair scraping against the floor. I think I need to go, she said. Why? Natalie asked. Her voice was light, almost amused. You're not going to tell anyone, are you? Who would believe you? We're family, Aunt Susan. We protect each other. Right, Susan said. Family. I heard footsteps, a door opening. Then Susan's voice low and urgent. I'm out. Recording is secure. I pulled the earpiece out and sat in the silence of the motel room. She did it. Natalie killed my father, cut his brake line, watched him drive away that morning knowing he was going to die. And Barbara knew. Barbara helped her. 7 years. I'd spent 7 years looking for proof, and now I had it. I played the recording back on my laptop. Natalie's voice clear and cold. I cut the brake line. February 14th, 2018. He was driving to work. The brakes failed on Route 2. This was admissible. Massachusetts was a one-party consent state. Susan had been part of the conversation. The recording was legal. This was murder. First-degree murder. Premeditated. Conspiracy. This was everything I needed. At 5 o'clock, Susan knocked on my door. I let her in. She looked pale, exhausted. You heard? She asked. I nodded. I couldn't speak. She sat down on the bed beside me. I'm sorry, Jordan. I'm so sorry you had to hear that. I wiped my eyes. It's okay. I needed to hear it. I needed to know. Susan pulled the recorder from under her blouse and set it on the table. This is it. This is the evidence we need. Tomorrow, we walk into that courtroom. We play this recording. And Natalie goes to prison for the rest of her life. I looked at the recorder. A small black device. No bigger than a USB drive. But inside, it was my father's voice. My father's death. My father's justice. Tomorrow, I said. Susan nodded. Tomorrow. She left. I sat alone in the motel room staring at the recorder. 7 years. I'd been chasing Natalie for 7 years. And tomorrow, in that courtroom, she was going to hear her own voice confessing to murder. And there was nothing she could do to stop it. One more day. That's all I needed. One more day until justice. I could do one more day. At 6 o'clock Tuesday evening, Susan knocked on my door. I opened it and she stepped inside holding the digital recorder in her hand like it was something fragile, something sacred. I have it, she said quietly. I took the recorder from her and sat down on the bed. My laptop was already open. I plugged in the device and opened the audio file. Natalie's voice filled the small motel room. I cut the brake line. February 14th, 2018. He was driving to work. The brakes failed on Route 2. He went off the road, hit a tree. Killed instantly. I closed my eyes. Tears ran down my face. For 7 years, I'd been searching for this. For proof. For certainty. And now I had it. Not suspicion. Not theory. Truth. Susan sat down beside me. "I'm sorry you had to hear that." "Don't be," I said. My voice was steady. "This is what I've been waiting for." I copied the file to my encrypted cloud storage, uploaded it to the FBI's secure server, and sent a copy to Agent Foster with the subject line, "Confession, Michael Keller murder case." Then I sat back and stared at the laptop screen. Tomorrow Natalie would hear this recording played in open court, and there would be nothing she could do to stop it. Susan stood and moved to the small table by the window. "We need to put together the final evidence package. Everything we're presenting tomorrow." I nodded and joined her. We spread the documents across the table and the bed-printed files labeled folders, USB drives. Everything we'd collected over the past week, everything I'd been gathering for 7 years. Evidence, audio recordings, 2 files, both from Susan's wire, meeting one Cafe Nero. Natalie admitting the conservatorship was about seizing the $3.2 million. Barbara's slip. We need that money. The company is in trouble. Meeting 2 Keller estate. Natalie confessing to cutting Michael's brake line. Barbara admitting complicity, both on record. Both admissible in Massachusetts court. Evidence B, financial records, Harbor Towers project documentation. $35 million in municipal bonds issued for affordable housing. $22 million diverted through shell companies in the Cayman Islands, Seabreeze Holdings Oceanview Capital Blue Horizon LLC. Final destination offshore account linked to Connor Flynn. Evidence C, email correspondence, Natalie to Connor Flynn. "I need more time to move the funds. Can you give me 60 days, Natalie to Richard Turner? Make sure she can't access any cash. And when she shows up at the bank, record everything. I need proof that she's unstable." Evidence D, false psychiatric evaluation. Dr. Anthony Reed's Section 12 petition. Signed without ever meeting me. Payment suspected $25,000. Evidence, a temporary restraining order, and Section 12. Documentation, proof of conspiracy. Proof that Natalie had planned this from the beginning. Evidence, F bank surveillance video, Commonwealth Bank and Trust, February 29th, 2025. Footage of me asking for access to my frozen accounts. Turner's setup. Natalie's trap. I printed everything. Organized everything. Labeled each folder clearly. By 8 o'clock, we had 6 thick binders sitting on the table. Susan looked at them and shook her head. 7 years of work, all in 6 folders. "It's enough," I said. At 8:30, I called Foster. "Did you get the recording?" I asked. "I got it." His voice was somber. "Jordan, I'm sorry. I know this was your father." "I'm okay," I said. "What's the plan for tomorrow?" Foster took a breath. "Judge Chambers has been briefed. He knows you're with the Bureau. He knows about the investigation. Tomorrow morning, after Montgomery presents his witnesses, the judge will open the sealed federal file. He'll reveal your identity and credentials. Then we'll play the recordings, and then arrests. Natalie, Barbara Turner. All of them. What about Flynn? We'll take him separately. But Natalie's the priority. Once she's in custody, she'll flip on Flynn to get a lighter sentence." I shook my head. "She won't flip. She's too proud. Then she'll spend the rest of her life in prison," Foster said. "Either way, justice gets served." I hung up and sat in the silence of the motel room. Tomorrow this would all be over. At 10 o'clock, Susan left. She hugged me at the door. "Get some sleep," she said. "Tomorrow's going to be a long day." "I will." She looked at me for a long moment. "Your father would be so proud of you, Jordan. You know that, right?" I nodded. I couldn't speak. She left. I locked the door and sat back down on the bed. I reached into my wallet and pulled out the photograph I'd been carrying for 7 years. A small creased picture of my father, Michael Keller, 50 years old, standing in front of the Keller Properties office, smiling. I looked at the photograph and spoke quietly. "Dad, I know you're not here. But if you were, I think you'd be proud. I did what you always told me to do. I didn't believe Natalie, and I found the truth. Tomorrow she's going to pay for what she did to you, and I'm going to make sure everyone knows you didn't die in an accident. You were murdered by your own daughter." I set the photograph down on the nightstand and wiped my eyes. 7 years ago, I'd made a promise. I promised I'd find out what happened. I promised I'd get justice for my father, and I'd kept that promise. Tomorrow, I would finish it. I lay back on the bed and stared at the ceiling. The motel room was quiet. Outside, I could hear the distant hum of traffic on Route 1. Tomorrow morning, I would walk into that courtroom. I would sit across from Natalie, and I would watch her world fall apart. She thought she'd won. She thought she'd trapped me, discredited me, taken everything from me. But she'd made one critical mistake. She'd underestimated me. Tomorrow, she would learn just how big that mistake was. I closed my eyes. One more night. That's all I needed. One more night until I could stand in front of that judge and destroy Natalie once and for all. I could do one more night. At 9:30, Judge Chambers looked at Montgomery. "Mr. Montgomery, you may call your first witness." Montgomery stood buttoning his suit jacket. "Thank you, Your Honor. I call Barbara Keller to the stand." My mother rose from her seat beside Natalie. She walked slowly to the witness box, her hands clutching a tissue. She wore a pale blue dress, the same one she'd worn to my father's funeral 7 years ago. The court clerk stepped forward. "Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?" Barbara's voice was small. "I do." Montgomery approached the witness box, his hands clasped behind his back. "Mrs. Keller, can you describe your relationship with the respondent, Jordan Keller?" "She's my daughter," Barbara said, "my youngest." "And how would you describe her mental state over the past several years?" Barbara's voice trembled. "Jordan has been struggling. She doesn't have a job. She rarely leaves the house. She spends all her time writing in these notebooks, page after page of, I don't even know what, conspiracy theories. She thinks people are watching her. She thinks we're—" She stopped to press the tissue to her eyes. "She thinks we're trying to hurt her." "Have you witnessed any violent behavior?" "Yes. Last Saturday, she went to the bank and caused a scene. Security had to escort her out, and before that, she threatened Natalie, said terrible things." "What kinds of things?" "She said Natalie was stealing money, that Natalie had killed her father. It's not true, of course, but Jordan believes it." I sat at the defense table, my hands folded in my lap, watching my mother lie under oath. She was good. She played the victim perfectly, the worried mother desperate to help her troubled daughter. But she didn't know I had her voice on tape, confessing to everything. Montgomery nodded slowly. "Thank you, Mrs. Keller. No further questions." Judge Chambers looked at me. "Ms. Keller, do you wish to cross-examine—" I stood. "Not at this time, Your Honor." A murmur ran through the courtroom. Natalie looked at me confused. Barbara stepped down from the witness box and returned to her seat beside Natalie. Montgomery leaned toward Natalie and whispered something. She smiled. I sat back down and waited. At 10 o'clock, Montgomery stood again. "Your Honor, I call Dr. Anthony Reed." Dr. Reed walked to the witness box. He was 52 tall and thin, with silver hair and wire-rimmed glasses. He wore a gray suit and carried himself with the kind of authority that came from years of testifying in court. The clerk administered the oath. Reed raised his right hand. "I do." Montgomery approached. "Dr. Reed, can you describe your professional credentials?" "I'm a board-certified psychiatrist with 25 years of experience. I specialize in severe mental disorders and risk assessment." "And you evaluated Jordan Keller?" "Yes, on March 1st, pursuant to a Section 12 petition." "What was your diagnosis, doctor?" Reed folded his hands. Ms. Keller exhibits delusions, specifically grandiose delusions. She believes she's an agent of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, which is demonstrably false. She has no verifiable employment history. She believes her family members are involved in criminal activity and conspiring against her. These are classic symptoms of paranoid schizophrenia or delusional disorder. Montgomery nodded. In your professional opinion, is Ms. Keller capable of managing her own affairs? No, she is not. She lacks insight into her condition. She refuses treatment, and she poses a risk of harm to herself. Without intervention, her condition will deteriorate. And what do you recommend? Conservatorship is appropriate. She needs a guardian to manage her finances and ensure she receives psychiatric care. Thank you, Dr. Reed. No further questions. Judge Chambers looked at me. Ms. Keller, do you wish to cross-examine? I stood. My voice was calm, steady. Dr. Reed, how much did my sister pay you to write that evaluation, doctor? Reed stiffened. I don't know what you're talking about. Your Honor, I said. I'll be addressing this with additional evidence shortly. Judge Chambers nodded. Noted, Doctor. Reed, you may step down. Reed left the witness box. As he walked past the defense table, he didn't look at me. Montgomery stood for his closing statement. It was 10:15. Your Honor, the evidence is clear. Jordan Keller is suffering from a severe mental illness. She has no job, no income, and no ability to care for herself. Her own mother has testified to her aberrant behavior. A licensed psychiatrist has diagnosed her with delusions, and she refuses treatment. Without conservatorship, she will continue to deteriorate, and the $3.2 million life insurance payout will be squandered or lost. Her sister, Natalie Keller, is the appropriate guardian. She is financially stable, successful, and she loves Jordan. I ask the court to grant this petition. Montgomery sat down. Natalie smiled at me across the courtroom. It was the smile I'd seen 1,000 times, the smile that said, I've won. Barbara sat beside her, dabbing at her eyes with the tissue. In the back of the courtroom, I could see Susan sitting in the third row. Her face was expressionless. 2 rows behind her, Agent Foster sat in a gray suit, his hands folded, watching. Judge Chambers turned to me. Ms. Keller, do you wish to present a defense? I stood. The courtroom fell silent. Yes, Your Honor, I said. But first I'd like to address the sealed federal file. The murmur in the courtroom grew louder. Natalie's smile vanished. Montgomery looked at the judge, confused. Judge Chambers picked up the crimson folder from his desk. He held it for a moment, then looked at me. Very well, he said. We'll address that now. I looked at Natalie. Her face had gone pale. This was it. The moment she realized she'd been played. Thank you for being here with Jordan through these intense moments. If you're still watching, drop a comment and let me know. I have a question for you. If you were Jordan right now, when all the evidence is stacked against you, when even your own mother has turned her back and labeled you unstable, would you stay silent? Or would you fight back and turn the tables? Let me know in the comments. A quick note. This story contains dramatic and fictional elements for entertainment. If you're uncomfortable, feel free to stop here. But if you want to witness the most shocking truth, the real secret is coming next. After Montgomery finished his closing statement at 10:15, Judge Chambers called a brief recess. Natalie and Barbara left the courtroom, whispering urgently in the hallway. Montgomery packed his briefcase, avoiding eye contact with me. I stayed in my seat, hands folded, waiting. Susan caught my eye from the third row and gave me a small nod. Agent Foster remained in the back, expressionless. At 10:45, the bailiff called us back. Natalie and Barbara returned Natalie's confident smile back in place. She thought she'd won. She had no idea what was about to happen. Judge Chambers held the crimson folder in his hands. The courtroom was silent, everyone waiting. He ran his fingers along the edge of the seal, a dark red wax embossed with the seal of the United States Attorney's Office. Before we proceed, he said, his voice measured, I need to address the sealed federal file. This file was delivered to me by the United States Attorney's Office with instructions that it be opened only if this conservatorship petition reached a formal hearing. We are at that point. He broke the seal with a small knife from his desk. The wax cracked cleanly. He opened the folder, removed several documents, typed pages, photographs, official forms, and began to read them silently. 10 seconds passed, 20, 30. The tension in the room was unbearable. I could hear Natalie breathing heavily across the aisle. Barbara's tissue rustled as she dabbed at her eyes. Montgomery shifted in his chair, glancing at the folder with growing unease. Finally, Judge Chambers looked up at me. His expression was unreadable. "Ms. Keller," he said, "would you please state your full name and occupation for the record?" I rose to my feet. My voice was clear, steady, loud enough for every person in the courtroom to hear. Jordan Ann Keller, Special Agent, Federal Bureau of Investigation, Boston Field Office, Organized Crime and Racketeering Unit. Badge number 7824, 7 years of service. For a moment, the courtroom was utterly silent. Then it erupted. Reporters scrambled for their notebooks, pens flying across pages. The audience broke into frantic whispers. Natalie shot to her feet, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. "What?" she screamed. "That's impossible. She's lying." Montgomery looked like he'd been struck in the face. His mouth opened, then closed. He looked at Natalie, then at me, then at the judge. "Your Honor, I had no knowledge." Judge Chambers slammed his gavel 3 times. The sound echoed through the courtroom like gunshots. "Order everyone sit down, now!" Slowly, the room quieted. Natalie sat back down, her hands gripping the edge of the table, so hard her knuckles were white. Barbara was crying openly, her face buried in her hands. I stayed on my feet, meeting Judge Chambers' eyes. Judge Chambers set the documents down on his desk and looked directly at Natalie. "According to this file," he said, his voice cold, "Miss Jordan Keller has been working undercover for the Federal Bureau of Investigation since February of 2018. Her cover story was that of a freelance data consultant with minimal income and no verifiable employment. Her actual assignment to investigate financial crimes related to Keller Properties and Keller Development, including money laundering, racketeering wire fraud, and connections to organized crime figures, specifically Connor Flynn of the Winter Hill Criminal Organization." Natalie's face drained of color, then flushed scarlet. Her jaw clenched. Judge Chambers continued, his tone sharp. "The file also indicates that Ms. Jordan Keller became the subject of a conservatorship petition filed by her own sister, Natalie Keller, who is the primary target in the FBI's investigation. The petition was filed as part of an effort to obstruct the federal investigation and to seize control of a $3.2 million life insurance payout that would otherwise be released to Ms. Jordan Keller upon her 30th birthday." He paused, letting the words sink in. "In other words," Judge Chambers said, "this court was used as a tool in an ongoing criminal conspiracy." Montgomery stood, his face red. "Your Honor, I swear to you I had no knowledge of any of this. My client assured me that her sister was mentally ill, that she needed help." "Mr. Montgomery," Judge Chambers interrupted, "your client lied to you, and she lied to this court. You may sit down." Montgomery sat down heavily. He looked at Natalie with something close to disgust. She wouldn't meet his eyes. Judge Chambers turned his attention to the witness box. "Dr. Reed, please stand." Dr. Reed rose slowly from his seat in the gallery. His face was ashen, his hands trembling. "Dr. Reed," Judge Chambers said, "you testified under oath that you conducted a psychiatric evaluation of Ms. Keller. You diagnosed her with paranoid schizophrenia or delusional disorder. You stated that she believed she was an FBI agent, which you characterized as a grandiose delusion." Dr. Reed nodded stiffly. "Yes, Your Honor, but Ms. Keller is in fact an FBI agent." Dr. Reed said nothing. Judge Chambers leaned forward. "Doctor Reed, did you accept payment from Natalie Keller to falsify a psychiatric evaluation?" Dr. Reed's voice was barely audible. "I know I conducted a legitimate—" "Answer the question, yes or no." There was a long silence. Then quietly, "Yes." Judge Chambers leaned forward further. How much did she pay you? Dr. Reed swallowed hard. His voice cracked. $25,000. The courtroom erupted again. Gasps, shouts, reporters scribbling furiously. Judge Chambers nodded to the bailiff. Marshal, please take Dr. Reed into custody. Charges perjury and conspiracy to commit fraud. The marshal moved quickly, pulling handcuffs from his belt. Dr. Reed held out his wrists, his face twisted in anger and humiliation. As he was led past Natalie's table, he glared at her with pure, undisguised hatred. You said this was legal, he hissed. You said, keep moving, the marshal said, pulling him toward the door. Natalie stared straight ahead, her jaw tight, her breathing shallow. Judge Chambers turned back to the room. Agent Foster, please stand and identify yourself. From the back of the courtroom, a man in a gray suit rose. He was in his mid-40s with close-cropped hair and the calm, professional demeanor of someone who'd spent decades in federal law enforcement. He held up a badge. Special Agent Marcus Foster, FBI Boston Field Office. I am Agent Keller's supervising officer. Everything Judge Chambers has stated is accurate. Agent Keller has been working undercover since February 2018. The conservatorship petition is part of an active obstruction of justice investigation. Natalie looked around the courtroom. Her face was no longer pale, it was flushed with rage. Barbara sat beside her, sobbing into her hands, her shoulders shaking. Montgomery was packing his briefcase. He knew this case was over. Judge Chambers looked at me. Agent Keller, do you have additional evidence you wish to present? Yes, Your Honor. I reached into my bag and pulled out a USB drive. I have audio recordings, financial documents, and email correspondence proving my sister's involvement in money laundering, racketeering, and... I paused. Let the words settle in the air. The murder of our father, Michael Keller, in 2018. The courtroom exploded. Reporters shouted questions. The audience surged forward. Natalie lunged toward me, her face twisted in fury. Two marshals grabbed her arms and held her back. You bitch! Natalie screamed. You set me up! You fucking set me up! Judge Chambers brought his gavel down with such force the sound cracked through the room like a whip. Order Ms. Natalie Keller sit down, or you will be removed from this courtroom in handcuffs. Natalie sat breathing hard, her eyes burning with hatred. Her hands were shaking. Barbara was crying openly now, her face buried in her hands, her body racked with sobs. Montgomery stood. Your Honor, I move to withdraw from this case. Motion granted, Judge Chambers said. You're dismissed, Mr. Montgomery. Montgomery gathered his things and walked out. He didn't look at Natalie. He didn't look at anyone. Judge Chambers turned back to me. His expression was grim. Agent Keller, please proceed with your evidence. I walked to the clerk's desk and handed her the USB drive. Your Honor, I'd like to play 2 audio recordings. The first was recorded at Cafe Nero on March 4th. The second was recorded at the Keller estate, also on March 4th. Both were obtained legally under Massachusetts one-party consent law by my Aunt Susan Blake, a retired FBI agent who participated in both conversations. I looked at Natalie. Her face was pale again. She knew what was coming. Judge Chambers nodded. Play the first recording. The clerk inserted the USB drive into the courtroom's audio system, and the courtroom filled with Natalie's voice. The first recording, the one from Cafe Nero, had just finished playing. Natalie's voice admitting the conservatorship was about the money. Barbara's slip about the company being in trouble. The courtroom was silent. Natalie sat frozen, her hands clenched on the table. Barbara was crying quietly. Judge Chambers looked at me. Agent Keller, please continue with your evidence. I moved to the front of the courtroom. A projector screen had been set up beside the judge's bench. I picked up the remote control and clicked. The first slide appeared. Your Honor, I'd like to present the financial records related to the Harbor Towers development project. In 2024, the City of Boston issued $35 million in municipal bonds to fund Harbor Towers, a mixed-use development with 40% affordable housing for low-income families. Keller Properties, run by Natalie Keller, was the prime contractor. I clicked to the next slide. The numbers were stark on the screen. Of that 35 million, only 13 million can be accounted for. The remaining 22 million was diverted through 3 shell companies registered in the Cayman Islands: Seabreeze Holdings, Ocean View Capital, and Blue Horizon Ventures. These companies have no physical offices, no employees, and no legitimate business operations. They exist solely to launder money. Murmurs ran through the courtroom. Natalie's voice was tight. "That's not true." Judge Chambers looked at her. "Ms. Natalie Keller, you will have an opportunity to respond." Agent Keller, continue. I clicked to the next slide, a flow chart showing the money trail. "This is a documented money trail. Every transaction is traceable. Every wire transfer is logged. And the ultimate beneficiary is Connor Flynn, an associate of the Winter Hill Criminal Organization." The murmurs grew louder. I looked at the audience. Reporters were writing furiously. Susan sat in the third row, her face calm but her eyes shining. Agent Foster stood near the back, arms crossed, watching. I turned back to Judge Chambers. "Your Honor, I'd now like to present email correspondence between Natalie Keller and Connor Flynn." I clicked the remote. An email appeared on the screen. I read it aloud. "On January 15, 2025, Natalie Keller wrote to an encrypted email address registered to Connor Flynn. She wrote, quote, 'The project is running behind schedule. I need more time to move the funds. Can you give me 60 days? Flynn responded the next day, quote, 60 days, not 1 day more. If the feds start asking questions, you're on your own. I let that sink in. Then I clicked to the next slide. On February 28th, the day of Barbara Keller's birthday party, Natalie sent another email. This one was to Richard Turner, branch manager at Commonwealth Bank and Trust. She wrote, quote, "The account freeze has been executed. Make sure she can't access any cash. And when she shows up at the bank record, everything. I need proof that she's unstable." I clicked again. Turner's response appeared. Turner replied within an hour, quote, "Done. Cameras are ready. She'll walk right into it." Judge Chambers looked at Agent Foster. "Agent Foster, has Mr. Turner been apprehended?" Foster stood. "FBI agents are en route to Commonwealth Bank as we speak, Your Honor. We'll have him in custody within the hour." Judge Chambers nodded. "Noted." Agent Keller, continue. I took a breath. This was the part I'd been dreading. Not because it would hurt Natalie, but because it would reveal just how deeply this family had been broken. "Your Honor, there's one more piece of evidence. It relates to motive." I clicked the remote. A document appeared on the screen, an adoption certificate from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. The courtroom erupted. Gasps. Shouts. Natalie's eyes went wide with horror. Natalie Keller was adopted on March 12, 1987, I said. She was 3 months old. The adoptive parents were Michael and Barbara Keller. According to family records, this information was kept confidential. However, Natalie discovered the truth when she was 16 years old. Barbara sobbed. "Natalie, I'm so sorry." "Shut up, Mom," Natalie said, her voice shaking. I continued, my voice steady. 1 week before my father died, he discovered that Natalie had known about the adoption for years. They had an argument. He told her it didn't matter that she was still his daughter, no matter what. But he also told her he was changing his will. He was concerned about her financial decisions and wanted to ensure the family assets were protected. I clicked the remote. The next document appeared, a beneficiary change form from Prudential Financial. On February 7, 2018, my father changed the beneficiary on his life insurance policy from Natalie Keller to Jordan Keller. The policy was worth $3.2 million. I paused. 7 days later, on February 14, 2018, my father died in what was ruled an accident. The courtroom was silent. I looked at Natalie. Her eyes were red, her face twisted in pain and rage. "My father didn't reject you because you were adopted," I said quietly. "He rejected you because he saw what you were becoming, and he tried to stop it." Natalie surged to her feet, slamming her palms on the table. "He betrayed me," she screamed. "He said I was his daughter, and then he took everything away. He gave it all to you." Judge Chambers raised his hand sharply. The courtroom fell silent. Miss Natalie Keller. But Natalie wasn't listening. She was looking at me, tears streaming down her face. "You don't know what it's like," she shouted. "Growing up thinking you belong, and then finding out you're just some random kid they picked up, and then he rewarded you his real daughter and left me with nothing." Barbara reached for her. "Natalie, it wasn't like that." "Shut up," Natalie screamed. "You lied to me my whole life, both of you. Order!" Judge Chambers snapped his voice, cutting through the chaos. "Marshal, restrain Ms. Natalie Keller." The marshal moved toward her. Natalie sat down abruptly, breathing hard, her face buried in her hands. Her shoulders shook with sobs. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. I could see the pain in her face, the decades of feeling like she didn't belong, the rage at being discovered and then discarded. But then I remembered what she'd done to my father. The brake line cut in the dark, the lies she'd told afterward, the 7 years she'd spent trying to destroy me, and the sympathy vanished. Barbara was crying openly now, her hands covering her face. Montgomery sat motionless, staring at his empty briefcase. He'd already packed up. He knew this case was over. Judge Chambers looked at me. His expression was grave. "Agent Keller, you mentioned murder. Do you have evidence to substantiate that claim?" I picked up the USB drive. "Yes, Your Honor. I have a recorded confession." Natalie looked up, her eyes wide with horror. On March 4th, 2025, my Aunt Susan Blake met with Natalie Keller and Barbara Keller at the Keller estate in Brookline. During that conversation, Natalie confessed to cutting the brake line on my father's car. Barbara admitted to being complicit. The entire conversation was recorded with a wire provided by the FBI. Massachusetts is a one-party consent state. The recording is admissible. Judge Chambers leaned forward. "Play the recording." I handed the USB drive to the clerk. She inserted it into the audio system. The courtroom fell silent, everyone waiting. And then Natalie's voice filled the room. Cold, clear, unmistakable. I cut the brake line. February 14th, 2018. He was driving to work. The brakes failed on Route 2. He went off the road, hit a tree. Killed instantly. The courtroom was silent. Judge Chambers looked at me, waiting. "Your Honor." I said, "I'd like to call Susan Blake to the stand." Susan stood from the third row. She was 58, dressed in a gray blazer, her silver hair pulled back. She walked to the witness box with calm confidence. The clerk stepped forward. "Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?" "I do," Susan said. I approached. "Ms. Blake, what is your relationship to me?" "I'm your aunt, your father's sister. In your professional background, special agent with the FBI for 25 years, Financial Crimes Unit, retired in 2015. On March 4th, did you meet with Natalie Keller and Barbara Keller?" "Yes, twice. Morning at Cafe Nero, afternoon at the Keller estate." "Did you wear a recording device?" "Yes. FBI issued digital recorder encrypted. Massachusetts is a one-party consent state. The recordings are legal and admissible." "What was the purpose?" Susan's voice was steady. "To obtain a confession related to my brother's death in 2018. The courtroom murmured. I walked to the clerk's desk. "Your Honor, I'd like to play the recording from the second meeting. Keller Estate, March 4th, 2:15 p.m. Judge Chambers nodded. "Proceed." I inserted the USB drive. The courtroom filled with voices. Susan's voice calm. "What did you do?" Natalie's voice cold. "I took care of it. Him, Michael. That accident wasn't an accident, Aunt Susan." Barbara's voice shocked. Natalie, she knows, Mom. Look at her face. She's not surprised." "Susan, what did you do, Natalie?" "I cut the brake line. February 14th, 2018. He was driving to work. The brakes failed on Route 2. He went off the road, hit a tree. Killed instantly." I stepped forward, hands steady at my sides, listening to my sister confess to murdering our father. Barbara's voice sobbing. "We didn't have a choice. Susan. Barbara. I knew what she was planning, and I didn't stop her." "Natalie, Mom helped me. She let me into the garage the night before. She made sure the cameras weren't working. And after he died, we played the grieving family. The police never suspected. Susan, why would you kill your own father? Natalie, because he was going to cut me out. He told me 2 weeks before he died he was changing his will. Everything would go to Jordan. The company, the house, the life insurance. I'd get nothing, so I made sure that didn't happen. Barbara's voice desperate. But it didn't work. He'd changed the beneficiary a week before he died. We didn't know until after he was gone, Natalie, and by then it was too late. So I spent 7 years waiting for Jordan to turn 30, waiting for that $3.2 million to be released, and now I'm going to take it. The recording ended. The courtroom was completely silent. Judge Chambers sat back. He looked at Natalie for a long moment, then at me. "Marshal," he said quietly, "please take Barbara Keller and Natalie Keller into custody. Charges first-degree murder conspiracy to commit murder obstruction of justice." The marshal moved forward. 2 FBI agents stepped up from the back. Natalie rose sharply from her seat. No, you can't." One agent took her arm. "Natalie Keller, you are under arrest for the murder of Michael Keller. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have the right to an attorney. If you cannot afford an attorney, one will be appointed for you." Her hands were pulled behind her back. The handcuffs clicked. She looked at me, eyes filled with rage. "You did this," she said, voice shaking. "You destroyed this family." I looked at her. My voice was calm. "No, you did that. 7 years ago." Barbara sobbed as the second agent cuffed her. She didn't resist, just stood there, tears streaming. "I'm sorry," she said, looking at me. "Jordan, I'm so sorry. I never wanted—" "You had 7 years to tell the truth, Mom," I said. My voice was flat. "You chose not to." The agents led them toward the door. Natalie struggled. Barbara walked slowly, head down. The courtroom erupted, reporters shouting, cameras flashing. Judge Chambers brought the gavel down once firmly. "Order!" The door closed behind them. Judge Chambers turned back. "This court hereby dismisses the conservatorship petition with prejudice. Jordan Keller is declared mentally competent and fully capable of managing her own affairs. I am referring this matter to the Massachusetts Attorney General for prosecution. This hearing is adjourned." He brought the gavel down one final time. It was over. I stood there, hands still at my sides, heart pounding. Agent Foster approached, hand extended. "Good work, Keller." I shook his hand. "Thank you, sir." Susan came to stand beside me. She put her hand on my shoulder. "You did it," she said quietly. I nodded. I couldn't speak. 7 years. 7 years of lies. 7 years of pretending. 7 years of watching my sister destroy everything my father had built, and now it was over. But I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel vindicated. I just felt tired. I looked at the empty seats where Natalie and Barbara had been. The table was littered with papers, a half-empty water glass, evidence of a life now destroyed. My family was gone. My mother and sister would spend their lives in prison. The company would be dismantled. The house sold. Everything my father had built was gone. But he would have justice. Finally, after 7 years, he would have justice. And as I walked out of that courtroom, I knew the hardest part was just beginning. Because family betrayal doesn't end when the handcuffs click. It lives in the silence afterward, in the empty chairs at Thanksgiving, in the questions you'll never get to ask, in the knowledge that the people who were supposed to love you chose greed instead. I had won. But what exactly had I won? Justice for my father, truth for the world, and for myself. I'd won my freedom, but I'd lost my family. I picked up my bag. Susan followed me toward the door. The reporters were waiting, but I didn't care. 7 years. It was finally over. 1 o'clock, I stepped out of the courtroom. Reporters swarmed, camera flashes erupting. Agent Foster and Susan flanked me, creating a path to the parking garage. Foster's car, a dark FBI sedan. I slid into the back seat, Susan beside me. "You did good, Jordan," Foster said as he drove. "Your father would be proud." I stared out the window. I just sent my sister and mother to prison. Susan touched my hand. You did what was right. I know, I said quietly, but it doesn't feel like a victory. We drove through Boston in silence. I watched the streets pass. Everything looked the same, but everything had changed. Where do you want to go? Susan asked. I had nowhere. The townhouse felt like a crime scene. The estate was being seized. I don't know, I said. You can stay with me, Susan offered, for as long as you need. I nodded, unable to speak. I had no family left, except Susan. 2 weeks later, I sat in Susan's living room watching the news. Breaking Richard Turner arrested on federal racketeering charges. Connor Flynn also arrested in coordinated FBI operation. Both held without bail. Susan sat beside me. It's all falling apart. Good, I said. That's what Dad wanted. 3 months later, the trials ended. I didn't attend the sentencing. I couldn't. I just wanted it over. I watched on TV instead. Natalie Keller convicted of first-degree murder, sentenced to life without parole. Barbara Keller received 25 years for conspiracy. Both showed no emotion. I turned off the TV. On the table were documents from Prudential Financial. Life insurance payout $3,200,000. Deposited April 18th, my 30th birthday. It was real, but it didn't feel the way I thought it would. 6 months later, I stood in front of Harbor Towers. The buildings were finished 2 modern glass towers against the September sky. A banner read, Harbor Towers Affordable Housing Project, 120 families. Funded by the Michael Keller Memorial Fund, I donated $1 million to complete the project Natalie destroyed. The city renamed it for my father. Susan stood beside me. Your father would be so proud. I hope so, I said. I wanted to do something meaningful, something he would have wanted. You gave homes to 120 families, and you gave your father justice. Through the windows, I could see families moving and children, running through rooms, parents carrying boxes, new lives beginning. Do you think he knew, I asked, before he died, that Natalie was planning to kill him? Susan was quiet. I think he suspected. That's why he changed the beneficiary. He wanted to protect you. I miss him. I know, I do too. We watched a little girl chase a soccer ball across the courtyard, her mother calling after her. Laughter echoed. This was what my father wanted. Not money, not the company, just people having homes. What are you going to do now? Susan asked. I resigned from the bureau last month. 7 years undercover is enough. I need to figure out who I am without a cover story. And the money, I'm keeping $2.2 million. I'm going to travel, see the places Dad talked about, Italy, Greece, Japan, and then maybe I'll start over somewhere new. Susan smiled. Can I visit? I smiled for the first time in months. Yes, I'd like that. We turned to leave. As we walked away, I looked back. The sun set behind the buildings, casting long shadows. Families still moving in, still laughing, still beginning. 7 years ago, I made a promise to my father. I promised I'd find the truth. And I did. Natalie would spend her life in prison. Barbara, too. The company was gone. The house sold. Everything destroyed. But Harbor Towers stood. 120 families had homes. My father's name was honored. And the truth, after 7 years of lies, was finally known. Now it was time to make a new promise. To myself. I would live. Not as an undercover agent, not as someone's daughter or sister, just as Jordan. I looked up at the sky. The clouds were breaking. Sunlight streamed through. For the first time in 7 years, I could breathe. For the first time in 7 years, I was free. And for the first time in 7 years, that was enough. And to you listening to this story, remember this family betrayal doesn't come with a warning label. It shows up at birthday parties. It hides behind concerned phone calls and, I'm doing this for your own good. I spent 7 years pretending to be someone else just to expose the sister who smiled at me while plotting my destruction. Here's what I wish someone had told me earlier. Family revenge is a poison you drink hoping someone else will die. Natalie destroyed our father for money and pride, and in the end, she destroyed herself. I wanted justice, not family revenge. There's a difference. Justice brings peace. Revenge just brings more pain. God carried me through the darkest moments. When I sat in that psychiatric ward, stripped of everything, I prayed for strength, and He gave it to me. When I heard Natalie's voice confessing to murder on that recording, I thanked God for truth, even when it shattered what was left of my family. And when the judge finally dismissed that conservatorship, I knew God had been with me every single step. If you're dealing with family betrayal, don't ignore it. Don't excuse it. Don't wait for someone else to fix it. Document everything. Find people you trust, like Aunt Susan was for me, and most importantly, don't let family revenge become your mission. Let truth be your weapon and faith be your shield. Family betrayal will leave scars, but those scars can become your testimony. Choose truth. Choose healing. Choose freedom over family revenge. Some parts of this story are dramatized for educational purposes. If it's not for you, that's okay. Choose content that fits you better. But if this resonated, drop a comment below, share this story. Subscribe to the channel, and remember, God sees the truth even when the world doesn't. Thank you for listening. I pray you never have to walk a road like mine, but if you do, I pray you walk it with courage. May God bless you with strength when your truth calls.